but it stood as a powerful reminder of resilience and the pursuit of justice. I've decided to give the luxury car you bought to my parents. What do you think about that? Karen and Dave are really excited. Hold on a minute. Did you buy the car just so you could give it to your parents? Yes, that's right. No matter what you say, the car is already theirs. If you don't agree, I'll divorce you. Divorce. At that moment, something inside me snapped. I had always held back, but hearing those words was too much. Fine, I said. If that's how you feel, then I'll do it. I'm Beth, 40 years old, and I work in an office. I live with my husband, Tony, and our 9-year-old daughter, Ash. Both Tony and I have stable jobs, so we live comfortably. Ash is growing up well, and I try to find happiness in my own way. But life isn't without its challenges. One of my biggest complaints is about Tony's relationship with his parents. Don't get me wrong, I think it's great that he cares for his mom and dad. But sometimes it feels like he prioritizes them over me and Ash. This issue has been ongoing for years. One of the most frustrating moments happened when I was in labor with Ash. I called Tony at work and told him I was having contractions. I asked him to come to the hospital because our baby was about to be born, but Tony's response was, "Sorry, I can't. My mom burned her finger, and I'm going over to help her." I couldn't believe it. How could he think his mom's minor burn was more important than the birth of our child? As it turned out, his mom had just accidentally touched a hot pen. It was a small burn, and all she had to do was run it under cool water. She was perfectly fine, but Tony rushed over like it was a life-or-death situation. It wasn't just his mom that upset me, it was Tony too. Why couldn't he see how important that moment was? Another time, when Ash was turning 1, we planned a special celebration for her birthday, but my in-laws had a trip planned and asked Tony to drive them. He didn't just drop them off. He stayed overnight at the hotel with them because they had an extra room. Meanwhile, I was at home with Ash, celebrating her first birthday alone. I couldn't believe he chose to spend that time with his parents instead of being with us on such an important day. Tony is a hard-working man, and he's generally kind to me. But when it comes to his parents, he always puts them first. I've tried to understand, but it's hurtful when it feels like Ash and I aren't his priority. And now, with the car situation, I'm questioning how much longer I can keep living like this. After everything that's happened, I started feeling distrustful of Tony. This wasn't just one isolated incident. It kept happening over and over again. Yet, despite all the pain, I couldn't bring myself to divorce him. I still loved Tony, and I didn't want to take away my daughter's father just like that. Tony wasn't completely uncaring about our daughter, Ash. He showed that he loved her in his own way, so I held on to the hope that one day he would put her first. But since Ash was born, Tony has never celebrated her birthday with us. She's now 9 years old, and it's always the same. He seems to think that celebrating her birthday is something I should do by myself. I've tried my best to make sure Ash doesn't feel lonely on her special day. One year, I even thought about inviting Tony's parents to celebrate with us. When I asked them, they said, "It's too much trouble to come over." I was shocked. Sure, their house is about 3 hours away by car, but Tony never thinks twice about driving that distance to visit them. Yet for them, it was suddenly a hassle to visit us for their own granddaughter's birthday. It felt selfish to me, but that wasn't even the worst of it. Karen is difficult in many ways. From the moment Ash was born, she made it clear she wanted us to have a boy. She even said, "I told you I wanted a boy. Why didn't you listen to me?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Who says things like that? It's not like you can choose the gender of your baby, and honestly, why does it even matter? Tony's family isn't some noble traditional family where a son is necessary to carry on the name. Karen is just old-fashioned and stuck in her ways. She even shows less love toward Ash because she's a girl. It breaks my heart to see her treat our daughter this way. Tony, on the other hand, always tries to please his mother. I think that's one of the reasons he doesn't celebrate Ash's birthday with us. He doesn't want to upset his mom by making her feel like we're prioritizing our family over hers. There have been other hurtful moments, too. One year, Tony took me to his parents' house for their New Year's family gathering. Karen used that time to pick on me constantly. She'd say things like, "Beth, why can't you move faster? Look, that person has an empty glass. Why don't you pour them a drink?" She treated me more like a servant than a daughter-in-law. It felt like she enjoyed bullying me. These moments piled up over the years, and it became harder and harder to ignore how much Tony's loyalty to his mother was hurting our family. I was working in a brothel. She made fun of me in front of everyone, especially the relatives. She'd say things like, "My son is amazing, but his wife is a disaster. All she does is sit in an office and enter data. How does she not get bored doing such a meaningless job?" I couldn't believe her words. I've explained to her so many times that my job is not data entry. I'm an engineer, but she either doesn't understand or just refuses to listen. And even if I was doing data entry, why does she have to look down on it? That's a perfectly respectable job. It's not just me she ignores, she does the same to our daughter. For example, every New Year, she gives gifts to other relatives' children, but skips our daughter entirely. It hurts me to see her treated like she doesn't matter. And what's worse is that Tony never stands up for us. Whenever his mother insults me or our daughter, Tony just sits there laughing along, pretending it's no big deal. Sometimes he even adds to the criticism, jokingly saying, "Yeah, my wife isn't great without me." It feels like he's trying to impress his family by putting me down. I stayed patient for a long time because I didn't want to take Ash away from her father, but as the years went by, my love for Tony slowly started to fade. It's hard to love someone who doesn't protect you or your child from unfair treatment. Then, one day, Tony came to me with a request. "Hey, there's something I've been thinking about buying," he said. "What is it?" I asked. "A car," he responded. "A car?" I was shocked. Tony had never shown any real interest in cars before. "Why all of a sudden?" "Well, I've been driving to my parents' house a lot lately, and I thought it would be nice to get a new one," he explained casually. "We live close to a supermarket, and I don't drive much. I'm not very interested in cars, so I figured if he wanted one, he could handle it." "Well, it's up to you," I told him. "You're the one who drives it the most." Tony looked happy with my response, but then his tone changed, and he looked a little guilty. "Actually, here's the thing," he said. "I'll choose the car, and I want you to pay for it." I was stunned. Tony wanted a car but couldn't afford it himself. He expected me to pay for it. The reality is, my salary has always been the main support for our family. When I was on maternity leave, Tony didn't contribute his income to the household at all. I had to return to work immediately after giving birth just to make ends meet. As an engineer, I've put in a lot of effort into building my career, but Tony seems to take it all for granted. This car situation felt like the last straw. I spoke to my company and arranged to work from home so I could balance my job and take care of our daughter. Managing both work and parenting was already challenging, but it became even more frustrating when Tony only used his salary for himself, while expecting me to pay for big expenses, like the new car he wanted. Even so, I decided to let him buy it. After all, when Tony is in a good mood, he's great with our daughter. "Okay, are you sure?" I asked. "Yes, thank you," Tony replied, overjoyed. He immediately began browsing car catalogs and researching online. Since I was the one paying, I tried to warm up to the idea. "Since it'll just be the three of us, we don't really need a big car," I suggested. Yeah, I know," Tony mumbled, clearly distracted. He was more focused on visiting car dealerships and talking to dealers. 3 weeks later, he told me he had found the perfect car and wanted to take me to the dealership. Tony was so excited. When we got there, I sat down and waited for him to tell me what to do next. Soon, the dealer brought out the car. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was a massive luxury minivan. "Oh my gosh, are we really buying this?" I asked, shocked. "Yeah, isn't it great? I'm so excited," Tony said, beaming. "Wait a minute," I said, trying to stay calm. "We don't need something this big. It's way too much for just the three of us." Tony brushed off my concern. Think about the future. It's better to have something sleek and roomy just in case we have another baby, he insisted. I was stunned. Even if we did have another child, this car was far too large for a family of 4. Are we seriously buying this car? I asked again, hoping he'd reconsider. Tony frowned, clearly frustrated. Why do you keep repeating the same thing? You're making the dealer uncomfortable. You're the one who said to leave it to me. I did, I admitted, but this is not what I had in mind. Tony ignored me, signed the contract, and completed the purchase. Then the dealer explained the price. My heart sank. It was far more expensive than I expected. I can't pay for this all at once, I said. We'll need to take out a loan. Tony insisted that the car loan be in his name, so we went ahead with it. From that moment on, we were committed to monthly loan payments for a car I didn't even want. I couldn't shake the feeling that Tony was more interested in impressing himself than in making practical choices for our family. Each month, I deposited the money into Tony's account to cover the car loan payments. That's how we ended up with the car. Eventually, it arrived at our house. Wow, it's so cool, Tony said, grinning ear to ear as he admired it. I thought to myself, well, if he's this happy, maybe it's worth it. But I had no idea what was about to happen next. One weekend, Tony grabbed the car keys and I asked, "Are you going somewhere?" "Oh yeah, I'm heading to my mom and dad's," he said casually. "Wait, what? You're leaving Ash behind to visit your parents again? And you're taking the new car?" I asked, already frustrated. Then Tony said something that completely shocked me. "Yep, that's right. I've decided to give the luxury car you bought to my parents as a gift." I froze. "What are you talking about? Karen and Dave are thrilled about it. Of course, I'll still drive it when we go out, but it's theirs now," he said happily. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Hold on a minute. Are you telling me you bought this car just to give it to your parents?" "Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying," Tony admitted. "You've got to be kidding me," I said, my voice rising. "You told me you wanted the car, so I agreed to buy it. If I had known it was for your parents, I would have never agreed." Tony shrugged. "It doesn't matter. It's already bought. It's in my name and I can do whatever I want with it. If you disobey me, I'll divorce you." "Divorce?" I repeated, stunned. At that moment, something inside me snapped. For years, I had been holding back, trying to keep the peace for our daughter's sake. Even though Tony always put his parents first, I believed he cared about our family too. But now I realized he was willing to throw us aside without hesitation if it meant pleasing his parents. "Divorce, huh? If I disobey, you'll just leave?" I said, my voice trembling with anger. "Who do you think you are?" Tony didn't respond, so I continued. "Fine, let's get a divorce. I don't want you around anymore. Go back to your mom and dad, mama's boy." What Tony said clearly caught him off guard. "I've had enough, Tony. I'm tired of being second to your parents. I'm tired of you disrespecting me and ignoring our daughter. If you care so much about them, go live with them. I'm done." For the first time, I felt a sense of freedom. I had been patient for too long, but this was the last straw. If Tony wanted to prioritize his parents over his family, then he could go back to them. Ash and I deserved better. I decided to provoke Tony, and just as I expected, his face turned red with anger. "You're mocking me, aren't you?" he snapped. "Fine then. Let's get a divorce right now." Tony stormed off, sneering as he said, "I'll go get the divorce papers." He left for the city office, slamming the door behind him. While he was gone, I began packing my things. I called my parents, John and Mary, explained the situation, and asked them to come pick me and my daughter up. I told Ash to pack her belongings as well. Soon after, Tony returned, holding the divorce papers in his hand. "Here they are. Sign them," he demanded. His handwriting on the forms was bold and messy, showing how angry he was when he filled them out. Without hesitation, I signed my part. Well, here you go. I'll file it. Why don't you just leave now? Tony said coldly. I'm going. Don't worry, I don't need you to tell me, I replied. You're such a terrible wife, you know that? Tony muttered, stomping around the house loudly. As I watched him, I wondered why I stayed married to someone like this for so long. I regretted not leaving him earlier, but there was no point dwelling on the past. What mattered was that I was finally leaving. For the first time in years, I felt grateful to be taking this step. From now on, I'd focus on being the best mother I could be for Ash. 10 minutes later, my parents arrived. Together, we packed up the last of my things and loaded them into their car. With everything ready, we left. After reaching my parents' house, I went to the city office to file the divorce papers. Once it was finalized, I felt an unexpected sense of relief. It was just a piece of paper, but knowing that Tony and I were no longer married made me feel free and lighter. I decided to start looking for a new place where Ash and I could live together. I was determined to create a better future for us. About a week later, while I was staying at my parents' house, something unexpected happened. I saw the luxury car Tony had purchased parked outside. Curious and slightly irritated, I walked inside with Ash. There, in the living room, were my ex-husband, Tony, and my ex-in-laws, Karen and Dave, sitting together. My mother noticed me right away and quickly took Ash to another room, giving me some space to deal with whatever was about to unfold. I stood there silently watching them. My emotions were a mix of anger, disbelief, and a strange sense of closure. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it. My focus was now on building a better life for me and my daughter, away from the chaos of the past. I walked into the living room and Tony immediately started talking to me in a panic. Beth, what's going on with the insurance for the car? He asked, sounding agitated. I looked at him coldly. What's the matter with you? Why are you barging into my parents' house like this? I replied firmly. At that moment, my ex-in-laws raised their voices angrily. We didn't want to come here either. We came because we had no other choice. Why are we being yelled at? They shouted defensively. My father, who had been quiet until then, spoke calmly but sternly. If that's the case, then leave. You're strangers to us now. If you don't go, we'll call the police to have you removed. Hearing this, my ex-in-laws became silent, clearly frightened by the suggestion. Meanwhile, Tony, still looking panicked, turned to me again. Beth, seriously, what's happening with the insurance payments for the car? He asked again, almost pleading. I sighed deeply. Did you forget what you said when you signed the contract? I asked, looking directly at him. You insisted that everything be in your name, the car, the loan, and all the paperwork. You said it was your car, so you're the one responsible for paying the insurance. My words seemed to strike Tony and his parents hard. Their faces went pale as they realized the situation. Tony had insisted on putting everything in his name, driven by his pride and desire to show off by owning the luxury car. Well, I continued, I didn't even want that car, so it's only fair that you handle the payments. Tony and his parents looked defeated, but then Tony muttered something that made the situation even clearer. Oh no, he said quietly. I raised an eyebrow, waiting for an explanation. We, had a little accident with the car, he confessed. An accident? I asked, crossing my arms. Tony hesitated but finally admitted. We were so excited about the new car that we drove it too fast. We ended up hitting another car on the road. The front of the car is completely wrecked. I couldn't believe it. So that's why you parked it the way you did when I got here, I said, piecing it together. You parked it so I wouldn't see the front, didn't you? Tony didn't respond. He just looked down, ashamed, while his parents stayed quiet, clearly embarrassed. I stood there, feeling a mix of anger and relief. This whole situation was a reminder of why I made the right decision to leave Tony. Whatever happened with the car and its payments was no longer my concern. It was Tony's mess to clean up now, not mine. At first, I hadn't looked closely at the car, but Tony and his parents came to me about the insurance because they knew I had been in charge of the payments. However, since the car was technically owned by the loan company, they were responsible for getting it repaired. And since they didn't have insurance, they had to cover the repair costs themselves, as well as the cost of fixing the guardrail they had damaged. I couldn't help but wonder how expensive it would be to repair a luxury car. I was sure the bill would be huge. In the end, Tony and his parents had no choice but to return the car. They were charged an enormous amount for the repairs, leaving them in serious financial trouble. Not long after, I started receiving emails from Tony, begging me to get back together with him. In one message, he said they couldn't afford to pay their rent or utility bills anymore. Tony had to move back in with his parents due to their money problems, but things didn't go well for him there either. His parents, angry about the car and the financial mess, were very hard on him. Tony couldn't handle their attitude and didn't want to stay at home, but he couldn't live on his own either because of all the debt. Despite all this, Tony kept insisting that he wanted to see our daughter, Ash. I thought it was incredibly selfish of him to demand that now, after everything he had done. I decided I wouldn't allow it. I ignored all his emails and didn't share any information about the new house where Ash and I had moved. At first, I worried about how Ash would feel. I wondered if she would miss her father, but to my surprise, she didn't seem to mind at all. Instead, she seemed happy and was enjoying her new life. Seeing her smile gave me strength. I made a promise to myself. I would keep working hard to give my daughter a good and stable life. I couldn't understand how Tony could prioritize his parents over his own child, or how he could ask me to pay for a car just to give it as a gift to his parents. That was something I could never forgive. In the end, Tony ruined his own life. He made selfish choices, and now he's paying the price. I don't feel sorry for him, he brought it all on himself. As for me and Ash, we're moving forward. I hope that from now on, we can live a happy life together. Ash deserves a bright future, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure she gets it.